The system said that once it redeemed the heroine, I could go home. But it slipped away on its own, leaving me alone to face the Yandere ex who once tried to kill me. Now, she's making me breakfast. He even threatened to break my legs if I dare to leave. Of course he was joking, probably. I opened my eyes and found myself standing in front of an unfamiliar villa. A mechanical voice immediately sounded in my mind. Welcome, host Ethan. You are bound to the redemption system. Your task is to heal the Yandere female lead Sophia in Night Rose. Upon success, you may return to your original world and gain a healthy body. I rubbed my temples. The memory of dying suddenly after staying up late to read novels last night was still vivid. The system fed me basic information about this world. I had become a psychological counselor, and Sophia was my new client. After I pressed the doorbell, I heard light footsteps from inside. The door opened a crack, and in amber I watched me warily. Miss Sophia? I'm Ethan, the psychotherapist you booked. The door opened wider, revealing her in full. Chestnut hair slightly curled, skin so pale it was almost translucent, lips a faint pink. She wore loose white loungewear, looking fragile and harmless, but I knew how dangerous she was in the novel. Come in. She turned and walked into the room, her voice as light as a feather. Tea or coffee? Tea is fine, thank you. I followed her into the living room and immediately noticed several oddities. All the curtains were drawn tight, 7 identical glass cups were arranged on the coffee table, and the wall clock was stopped at 3:15. The novel had mentioned that was the time her mother left her. Sophia returned with the tea, moving so gracefully it looked like a performance. She placed the cup in front of me, then sat on the single armchair opposite, legs together and angled to the side like a well-behaved student. So, she tilted her head and looked at me. The City Psychological Counseling Association sent you to treat me? I noticed the derision at the corner of her mouth when she said treat. I decided to be frank. To be honest, I came because I saw your ad looking for a counselor. I'm interested in special cases. This is the background identity the system assigned me. Sophia's eyes lit up briefly. Obviously, my answer surprised her. Special case? She repeated softly, her fingers unconsciously brushing her collarbone. So, where do you think I'm special, Dr. Ethan? I look her in the eyes. I don't know. That's what I want to find out. But first, could you open the curtains a bit? Sunlight has a good effect on mood. Sophia's expression went cold in an instant. No. Why? I don't like it. Her fingers began to twist the hem of her clothes, knuckles whitening. If you insist, you can leave right now. I raised both hands in a gesture of surrender. Respecting the client's wishes is a basic principle. Let's change the subject. What hobbies do you have? Over the next half hour, I learned that Sophia enjoys baking, gardening, and puzzles. On the surface, she seemed like an ordinary artsy young woman, but when I casually mentioned the word friends, her expression immediately darkened. Friends all leave. She stared at her nails. In the end, only souvenirs remain. A chill ran down my spine as I remembered Sophia's habit in the novel of keeping every trader's belonging. But the system had warned me not to mention the novel's plot directly. That would break the world's rules. When the first consultation ended, Sophia walked me to the door. Just as I turned to say goodbye, she suddenly asked, Dr. Ethan, would you ever just disappear? Sunlight slanted through the crack of the door, lighting half her face while the other side was hidden in shadow. I looked at her expectant, fearful eyes and answered softly, No, I promise. The system sneered in my mind. You promised too soon, host. Yandere hate being deceived. Shut up. I hissed quietly, then noticed the strange looks from passers-by. The system's gloating electronic voice chimed in my head. The next morning at 7, I stood at Sophia's door, carrying 2 bags of breakfast. No one answered when I rang, so I entered the password the system had given me. The apartment was dim, only a small light on in the kitchen. Sophia, wearing a nightgown, stood at the counter. Hearing the sound, she spun around, a fruit knife clenched in her hand. It's me. I immediately raised the breakfast bags. Brought shangjian and soy milk. Sophia's eyes looked especially large in the dim light. She slowly put down the knife, her voice hoarse as if just awake. How did you get in? Guess the password. Your birthday. I lied, setting the breakfast on the table. Eat while it's hot. She stared at me warily for a few seconds, then suddenly laughed. Dr. Ethan, is this professional harassment? Friendly behavior. I corrected her, arranging the meal box without asking. I figured you hadn't had breakfast yet. Sophia hesitated as she approached, like a wary cat. She picked up a pan-fried bun and took a small bite, broth staining the corner of her mouth. I handed her a napkin. When she took it, her fingertips trembled slightly. Why are you doing this? She asked softly. Because I want to. I shrugged. Consultation time is too short. I want to know more about you. Sunlight gradually filtered through the curtain seams, softening Sophia's profile in the light. She finished the last bite of the pan-fried bun and suddenly said, "Don't come next week." Why? I don't need. She chose her words carefully, this kind of relationship. I looked her straight in the eyes. Sophia, accepting someone's kindness doesn't mean you owe them anything. It's just breakfast, not a contract. She sprang to her feet, the chair screeching across the floor. You don't understand at all? Everyone says that at the start, and in the end they all. She cut off abruptly, her chest heaving. I'll leave. I softly finished for her, I won't. Sophia sneered. Do you know what happened to the last person who said that? My heart raced, but my face stayed calm. Tell me. She stared at me for a few seconds, then suddenly turned and walked toward the stairs. Consultation time, Dr. Ethan. See you next week. For the next 3 weeks, I brought a different breakfast to Sophia's house every day. Sometimes it was Western-style muffins with coffee, sometimes Chinese congee and dim sum. Sophia went from resisting to reluctantly accepting, and then to occasionally sending a message in advance saying, I want Xylong Bao tomorrow. On Wednesday of the 5th week, I didn't deliver breakfast because something urgent came up. In the afternoon, I got a call from Sophia. Her voice was icy. Are you dead? Sorry, there was an emergency patient this morning, I explained. I'll make up for it with a double portion tomorrow. There was silence on the other end for a few seconds. Do as you like. Then she hung up. The next day, I brought a double breakfast to apologize. When Sophia opened the door, her eyes were red, as if she'd been crying. She saw the food in my hands. The corners of her mouth lifted slightly, then dropped immediately. I hate waiting for people. She took the breakfast bag and said softly, It won't happen again. I promised, feeling a small part of me soften. After 2 months of the breakfast campaign, my relationship with Sophia had clearly improved. She began to allow me to open some of the curtains and even let me accompany her in the garden to prune the roses. Why do you like roses? I asked her one afternoon, watching her deftly cut away the excess branches. Sophia didn't even look up, because they protect themselves. I looked at the tiny cuts on her hand and suddenly understood. The novel had mentioned that Sophia's mother left home when she was 5. Her father became an alcoholic, and the roses were the only friend of her childhood. Does it hurt? I gently held her wrist. Sophia paused, shook her head. I'm used to it. I took a bandage out of my pocket and carefully applied it to her. Her wrist was so delicate, it looked like it would snap with one bend, her skin cold to the touch. After I put it on, she didn't immediately pull her hand away. She simply watched me. Ethan, she called me by name for the first time. Who exactly are you? Sunlight filtered through the rose leaves and dappled her face. I looked into her amber eyes, which were full of questions and a fragility I had never seen before. Someone who cares about you, I answered. Sophia pulled her hand back and continued trimming the flower branches, but I noticed the tips of her ears were slightly red. That night, a heavy rain started. I lay in bed reading when the system suddenly alerted. Host, abnormal behavior detected in target subject. Immediate inspection recommended. I immediately got up and looked out the window, discovering Sophia in a raincoat digging at something in the garden. Curiosity drove me to sneak downstairs and follow her in the rain. Sophia dug a small hole under the rose bushes in the corner of the garden, took a small box from her raincoat pocket, and placed it inside. Just as she was about to cover it with soil, a flash of lightning streaked across the sky, and she abruptly looked up and saw me. What are you doing? I walked over and asked. Sophia's face was as white as paper in the lightning's glare. Go away. Not only did I not leave, I crouched down and looked at the little box. Through the half-open lid, I saw a button and a photograph inside. What is this? I asked softly. Rainwater ran down Sophia's cheeks, and I couldn't tell whether it was rain or tears. Souvenirs. Mementos from after they left. I understood immediately. This was the traitor's keepsake box mentioned in the novel. But the Sophia in front of me looked less like a dangerous Yandra and more like a grieving child. Can you tell me their stories? I asked softly. Sophia stared at me for a long time, then finally spoke. The button is from my elementary school deskmate, Lily Brown. She said she'd be my friend forever, but later moved away and transferred schools. Sophia stretched, her collar slipping slightly with the movement to reveal a small rose tattoo at her clavicle. Where did you get it? I asked curiously. Sophia instinctively touched the tattoo. On my 18th birthday. A bitter smile tugged at her mouth. A coming-of-age gift to myself. A reminder not to trust promises anymore. On a whim, I reached out and touched the tattoo. Her skin was slightly warm under my fingertip. Sophia held her breath, but didn't pull away. Not every promise will be broken, I said softly. Sophia's eyes flickered with complicated light. Just as the atmosphere grew delicate, her stomach suddenly growled. We laughed aloud at the same time, breaking that momentary tension. The muffins are cold. She stood up. I'll heat them up. Watching her busy back in the kitchen, I felt a strange sense of satisfaction. The system suddenly spoke, warning to host. Excessive emotional investment may affect task judgment. I ignored the system's warning. In that moment, Sophia was more than just a mission target to me. In the afternoon, Sophia suggested we go for a walk in the nearby Maple Bay Park. Before leaving, she hesitated for a moment, then handed me a key. From now on, you don't need to ring the doorbell. I took the key and felt an inexplicable joy. It was a sign that she was beginning to trust me. The park was bathed in sunlight. Sophia walked beside me, our shoulders occasionally brushing. She pointed out various plants to me like an excited child. In front of a cluster of white roses, she stopped and gently stroked the petals. When I was little, my family also grew white roses. She said softly, Mom said they stand for pure love. I stood behind her, smelling the faint scent of shampoo in her hair. In this moment, Sophia was a world apart from the dangerous Yandra in the novel. Ethan, she suddenly turned to face me. If one day you have to leave, could you tell me in advance? Her eyes were so fragile it hurt me. I reached up and brushed a petal off her shoulder. That if will not happen. Sophia's eyes lit up, then dimmed again. Another promise. It's not a promise. I smiled. It's a fact. On the way home, Sophia's steps were noticeably lighter. Passing a dessert shop, she volunteered to buy a cake to take back. Chocolate or strawberry? She asked me, standing in front of the counter. Chocolate, I answered. She bought a half-and-half flavor. This way we can both have what we like. That simple warmed my heart. The system displayed in my mind. Redemption progress 65%. Host please maintain distance. I ignored the system's warning again. Watching Sophia carefully hold the cake box, I just wanted to protect this girl who had once been hurt by the world. As time went on, Sophia's changes became increasingly obvious. She began proactively messaging me, sharing everyday trivialities, reminding me to take an umbrella when it rained, even starting to learn how to cook, though the results were often painful to behold. One weekend afternoon, I was organizing case files in the apartment when I suddenly received a call from Sophia. Can you come over? Her voice sounded odd. I rushed to her place and found her curled up on the sofa, her face pale. A few empty bottles and an old photograph were scattered on the coffee table. What's wrong? I sat down beside her and gently took her hand. Sophia's hand was cold and trembling. Today is the day my mother left. She pointed at the photo. Today, 20 years ago. In the photo, a young woman held a little girl in front of a bed of roses. Both were smiling happily. I recognized them as the young Sophia and her mother, Claire Taylor. Every year on this day, I can't control myself. Sophia's voice broke apart. I want to hurt myself or others. I only then noticed she was holding a small knife in her other hand. I gently pried her fingers open, took the knife, and then pulled her into my arms. Shoo, it's okay. I stroked her back. I'm here. Sophia trembled in my arms like a frightened little animal. After a long time, she calmed down, but did not leave my embrace. I used to cut myself, she mumbled into my chest, or find someone to hurt me. But today, I only wanted to see you. Those words warmed my heart. I cupped her face and wiped away the still damp tear stains. I'm glad you called me. Sophia's eyes were red, her nose tip flushed pink, looking fragile and beautiful. She suddenly leaned in, brushed my lips lightly, then pulled back quickly, like a child who'd done something wrong. I'm sorry, I didn't let her finish. I bowed my head and kissed her. The kiss was gentle and restrained, yet it made my heart pound like thunder. When we parted, Sophia's eyes shone astonishingly bright. What does this mean? She asked softly. It means... I brushed her cheek. I like you, Sophia. Not the kind of liking a doctor has for a patient. Sophia's eyelashes fluttered. Then she suddenly threw herself at me and hugged me, burying her face in the hollow of my shoulder. I like you too. But I don't know how to like someone normally. I smiled and ruffled her hair. We can learn together. That night, we cuddled on the couch watching a movie. Sophia rested against me, her fingers unconsciously playing with my buttons. Halfway through the film, she suddenly said, Ethan, I want to try. Not collecting keepsakes anymore. I looked at her in surprise. You mean the boxes in the garden? She bit her lower lip. I want to dig them up and throw them away. That was a huge step forward. I squeezed her hand tightly. I'll do it with you. The next morning, we dug up 3 small boxes. Sophia trembled as she opened them and took out the items one by one. Buttons, photos, hairpins, each representing a period of pain from betrayal. Ready? I asked her, holding a lighter. Sophia took a deep breath and nodded. We put the items into an iron bucket and set them alight, watching the flames consume the past hurts. Sophia held my hand tightly. Tears slid down silently, but her gaze grew increasingly resolute. Goodbye. When the last item turned to ash, she said softly. The system sounded in my mind. Redemption progress 85%, host about to complete the task. By rights I should have been happy, but a sudden, inexplicable sense of loss welled up inside me. Completing the task meant leaving, and now I couldn't imagine a life without Sophia. As the redemption progress rose, the system began to remind me more and more often to prepare to return to the original world. Each time I heard that reminder, my heart ached as if it were being wrenched. Sophia seemed to notice my oddness. One night, while we were cooking together in the kitchen, she suddenly turned off the stove and faced me. You've been distracted a lot lately. She looked me straight in the eyes. Has something happened? I avoided her gaze. Nothing, just a bit tired from work. Sophia didn't believe me. She grabbed my wrist. Ethan, look at me. You said you wouldn't lie to me. I looked at her worried expression, my chest tightening. A system warning rang in my head. Revealing the system's existence is forbidden. Otherwise, you will be forcibly sent back. I struggled to find the words, thinking about some things for the future. Sophia's expression softened. Our future. That word warmed my chest. I nodded. Yes, ours. She seemed pleased with the answer and reopened the stove. That's good. As long as it's something we face together, there's nothing to worry about. Watching her hum and stir-fry vegetables, I suddenly realized a terrifying fact. I had fallen in love with her. Not as a mission target, but as a real person. That night, I tossed and turned in my apartment, unable to sleep. The system coldly reminded me. Redemption progress 90%. Host prepare to leave. What if I don't leave? I whispered. The system will forcibly repatriate. The target character will be restored to their original state. The threat sent a chill through me. I couldn't imagine Sophia reverting to that withdrawn, obsessive self, especially now that she'd become so outgoing. Over the next few days, I deliberately reduced contact with Sophia, hoping to gradually create distance and make the separation less painful. But that action clearly hurt her. On Friday night, Sophia suddenly appeared at my apartment door, her eyes swollen and red, holding a familiar box. What is this supposed to mean? Her voice trembled. Not replying for 3 days straight. Not answering calls? Are you trying to abandon me again? I looked at the box in her hand, my heart nearly stopping. It was a new souvenir box. Sophia, it's not like that. I tried to explain. What is that? She almost shouted. You said you wouldn't leave. You said so. Her breakdown tore me apart. I stepped forward to hold her, but she jerked back and pulled a small knife from her pocket, pointing it at me. Don't come any closer. Her voice was fractured. I can't be deceived again. I won't. The blade's tip flashed coldly in the light, but what frightened me more was the madness returning to her eyes. 3 months of effort were on the verge of being ruined. Sophia, listen to me. I slowly raised both hands. I'm not leaving you. These past few days, I've just been thinking about some things. What could be more important than me? She demanded, the blade tip trembling slightly. I took a deep breath and decided to take a risk. If I tell you a secret, can you promise not to tell anyone? Sophia looked at me suspiciously, but nodded. I cautiously leaned in until the tip of the knife pressed against my chest. I'm not from this world, I said softly. I was sent here by a system, and my task is to help you. Sophia's eyes widened. What do you mean? It means I'm from another world. I continued to explain. The system promised I could go back after completing the mission. But now, I don't want to leave. The pressure of the blade eased a little. Why tell me this now? Because I love you. I looked her in the eyes, and the system is threatening to forcibly take me back unless... Unless what? Unless I choose to stay forever. I finally said the words, feeling a strange sense of relief. Sophia's hand went completely limp, the knife clattering on the floor with a crisp sound. She threw herself into my arms, holding me tightly as if afraid I would suddenly disappear. Stay, she mumbled against my chest. Please. I kissed the top of her head. I'm not going anywhere. Just then, the system suddenly emitted a piercing alarm. Warning, host violated the rules, initiating emergency protocol. My vision began to blur, my body as if being pulled by an invisible force. Sophia looked at my gradually becoming transparent body in terror, screaming as she grabbed my hand. No, don't take him away, she cried. Just when I thought it was all over, the pulling sensation abruptly stopped. The system emitted intermittent sounds. Error. Program conflict. Host selection meets final redemption conditions. System unbinding. Ethan. Sophia trembled as she touched my face. Are you still here? I held her tightly. I'm here. I am all right. We fell to the floor in each other's arms. Sophia's tears soaked through my shirt. After a long, while she lifted her head, her eyes rimmed with red. That system, is it really gone? I checked myself. My mind was silent, and there was no longer any voice from the system. I think so. I answered softly. I remember every time you were unwell. Her fingers brushed my cheek. Everything about you, I remember. Words like that used to send a chill down my spine, but now they only warm my heart. I teased her on purpose. So what did I have for breakfast last Tuesday? Whole wheat toast with a boiled egg, and you only drank half a cup of milk because you said it tasted a bit fishy. Sophia answered without hesitation, then arched an eyebrow smugly. Want me to continue? I surrendered and raised my hands, earning her a triumphant smile. It suddenly started raining on the way home. Sophia took a folding umbrella out of her bag. Pink, very small, just enough for one person. I knew it would rain, she said smugly, handing the umbrella to me. You hold it. My hair won't mind getting wet. I looked at her carefully tended chestnut hair, sighed, opened the umbrella, and held it over our heads. Together, Sophia's eyes lit up, and she immediately snuggled up to me, her arm looping around my waist. We walked through the rain like conjoined twins, her body heat seeping through the thin fabric and dispelling the chill of the rainy day. Halfway there, she suddenly called me. I like this. Her voice was almost drowned out by the rain. I like that you hold the umbrella for me. I like going home with you. I looked down at her. The rain had dampened her bangs, plastering them to her forehead, and tiny droplets clung to her eyelashes. In that moment, the fearsome Yandere heroine who once made everyone tremble vanished, leaving only an ordinary girl who was happy because we shared an umbrella. I like you too, I said. Then, to her surprised gaze, I lowered my head and kissed the damp top of her hair. Sophia has recently gotten into baking. One weekend, the rich smell of chocolate drifted from the kitchen. I went in and saw her flustered, piping cream onto a cake. Need any help? I asked, leaning against the doorframe. Sophia looked up, a little flower on the tip of her nose. No, this is a surprise for you. I smiled and walked over, wiping the flower off the tip of her nose with my finger. Already surprised? You blew up the kitchen? Indeed. Eggshells, flour, and chocolate smears were scattered across the counter, and the blender still held unwashed batter. Sophia, fuming, swiped a hand covered in cream across my face. Those who mock the chef must be punished. Halfway through the film, she suddenly looked up at me. Ethan, do you still want to go back? I lowered my head and kissed her forehead. This is my home. Sophia's eyes glittered in the dim light. Really? Really? I answered seriously. A world without you isn't worth going back to. She leaned back against my chest with satisfaction, our fingers intertwined. The sound of the movie faded into the background as we held each other quietly, neither of us wanting to break the peace. One clear night, Sophia mysteriously tugged me out to the balcony. The night sky was studded with stars. She pointed at one of them. Look, I found it. Star? I asked, puzzled. It's our star, she said seriously. I checked. It's Vega and Lyra. From now on, it will be our witness. I looked at her devout profile and suddenly understood what Yandere romance meant, turning the entire sky into a confession tool. Then I'll take that one. I casually pointed to a bright star. Sophia immediately pulled out her phone to check the star map. That's Vega in Lyra. F. She suddenly realized, her face flushing. You did that on purpose. I laughed heartily and pulled her into my arms. The night breeze brushed past, carrying the scent of roses. Sophia murmured something softly in my arms, her voice gradually drowned out by the cicadas. F. After a while, she called me softly. Thank you for staying. Her voice was so soft, it was almost inaudible. Thank you for choosing me. I tightened my arms and held her closer. No thanks necessary. Sophia, falling in love with you is the easiest decision I've ever made. She tilted her head up to look at me, her eyes sparkling under the starlight. Even though I used to be that kind of person? Exactly, because you used to be that person and became who you are now. I gently stroked her cheek. Your courage and the change you made it impossible for me not to fall in love with you. Sophia's eyes were moist. She stood on tiptoe and kissed me. The kiss carried the vastness of the starry sky and the gentleness of the night breeze. When we pulled apart, our foreheads rested together and our breaths mingled. I have an idea, she said suddenly. We could open a small shop. You keep doing psychotherapy, and I'll be in charge of the desserts. I nodded with a smile. Sounds perfect. Really? Her eyes brightened. I was worried you'd think it was too ordinary. Every day with you is an adventure, I said sincerely. Sophia sighed contentedly and leaned on my shoulder. In the night sky, Vega and Altair faced each other across the Milky Way, just like we once faced the world and the walls around our hearts. But now, we had found each other and never needed to part again. One morning a year later, sunlight poured through the white sheer curtains into the bedroom. I opened my eyes and saw Sophia already awake, propping her chin on her hand as she looked at me. Good morning. She smiled and leaned in, giving me a minty morning kiss. Up so early? I rubbed my eyes and noticed she was already dressed. I have a surprise for you. She winked mysteriously. Get up quick. She pulled me to wash and change, then blindfolded me and put me in the car. When the blindfold was removed, I found myself standing in front of a small shop with a sign that read, Hong Shrigog. This is... I looked at her in surprise. Our shop. Sophia pulled me inside excitedly. Look, this is the consultation area. Over there is the dessert section, and there's a small garden in the back. The interior was warm and tasteful, half a comfortable psychological counseling area, the other half an elegant dessert counter. The back door led to a small garden filled with white roses. Do you like it? Sophia asked expectantly, looking at me. I secretly prepared it for 3 months. I held her tightly, unable to speak. This girl who once couldn't even trust anyone had now given me a home, a career, an entire future. I love it to death. I finally found my voice, and I love you to death. Sophia smiled and pulled me toward the counter. Want to try my new product? Redemption chocolate, made just for you. I took a bite. The rich chocolate melted in my mouth, with a faint wine aroma and a sweetness that followed a touch of bitterness, just like our story. How is it? She asked nervously. Perfect. I smiled and took another bite. Just like you. Sophia's face flushed. She turned away, pretending to straighten the counter, but I saw her smiling secretly. Sunlight filtered through the window and cast a golden edge around her. I walked over and wrapped my arms around her from behind, resting my chin on her shoulder. Thank you, Sophia. Thank me for what? Thank you for letting me stay, I said softly. Thank you for giving me a home. She turned to face me, her eyes sparkling. I'm the one who should be thanking you, Ethan. Thank you for seeing the part of me that even I despise and still choosing to love me. We smiled at each other, and on this bright sunny morning, in our little shop, we found the definition of happiness. The system once lied to me, saying I could leave after completing the redemption, but it was wrong. True redemption isn't finishing a task and running away. It's staying, turning wounds into scenery, the Yandere into a lover, and a strange world into home. And it all began with one choice, choosing to love, choosing to stay, choosing to believe that even the deepest scars can bloom the most beautiful flowers.